Mrs. Rogers, thanks for dropping by. I wanted to start going over sort of individual plants, and it suddenly dawned on me it's not as easy as perhaps I thought. To pick up each plant in turn and go over it happens naturally on watering day. Today is watering day, part 1. There will be more tomorrow probably, because I've got things to do later today. I work round a shelf at a time when I'm watering. I just pick up each plant, have a look over it, dunk it if necessary. Some plants get left because they're still wet, that sort of thing. But it is a good opportunity to individually go over the plants, so that's what I'm going to try and do today. And I always start on the left and work my way down and then across and down, blah 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 blah. So the first shelf to have a go at will be the Oncidium Shelf. And the way I work is I take each plant off in turn, it gets watered and it gets chucked on the floor out of the way. And then when the shelf's clear and all the plants are done, I can set them back up again. I won't bother filming that bit, I'll just move on at that point. And we'll see how it goes anyway. Obviously the camera's going to be on the tripod, and I still haven't got used to showing plants to the camera lens instead of the viewing screen, but we'll see how it goes. So if it's a bit off to the side, it's just my inexperience, but we'll get better as we go along. Okay, I'll switch the camera onto the tripod and then we'll get going. Okay, here we go then. The plants are going to fly past at quite a rate of knots. Oncidium Twinkle has been in flower for some time. Not a bad little plant, eBay purchase. It's got a couple of nice new growths coming on, and it's got a reasonable root system. There's some down in the pot, there's some out of the pot, they always seem to do that. Okay, and that one is dry, so that one's going to get wet. And what I do is I put them back in their tray to drain. And then when I pick them up again, we pour the water back in. Another Oncidium Twinkle. This one again has just finished flowering. This one's got 1, 2, 3 new growths. Got a very nice root system, recently repotted. I like this one. This is called Twinkle Brown. The flowers aren't really brown. They're a sort of rusty orangey brown colour with bits of yellow. It's a very pretty little one and very highly scented. We like this one. And another Twinkle. This one is just about to come out into flower. I've shown you this one before. It's got 4 flower spikes on it. Buds are starting to swell quite nicely now. This one hasn't flowered for me before, so I don't really know what colour it's going to be. No, you're not going to come off. Next week. Dead leaf, sorry. I'm quite looking forward to this one coming out. I don't even know if this one's scented. It was sold as scented, but then I've been caught like that before. So that's my 3 twinkles. Now let's get on to some bigger stuff. This is your typical Nellie Isla. This was a store-bought sort of thing, spur of the moment purchase really, but it's not a bad plant. The other one that I already had is not very good, so this sort of replaces it. I don't like the media it's in. It's coming out of there as first opportunity, but bearing in mind these 2 flower spikes are virtually open to the end. They won't last much longer, you know, they're coming towards the end, but there's 3 more coming on behind, so I'm reluctant to take it out of the pot at the moment. And that one is still slightly damp, so you're only getting a dribble. There we go. But that's not a bad plant. Not a bad plant at all. Next is one of my wildcats. This is Wildcat Cheetah. It's got a hell of a spike on it. Not bad at all. Only 1 branch this time. But beautiful flower when it comes out. Bright yellow with red and mahogany type markings on it. Not that strong a plant, but it's coming on. This is its first flowering for me. It was effectively two back bulbs and single growth. So this is my growth, bigger than the last one, which is good. And a flower spike, even better. Ooh, come out. Another biggie. This is Oncostelli catatanthe. Again, this was a spur of the moment purchase when I first saw this. I had to have it. That's a lovely large flower spike. Buds should be forming soon, and they're a lovely orangey coppery colour, I would say. It's one that does the rounds. It turns up in supermarkets and do-it-yourself stores. It's one of those ones that are thrown out by a nursery by the thousand at some point, and they end up in the UK, and we fall for them and we buy them. That's what we do. Lovely root system on this, and latest bulb, larger than the last one. We like that, and a flower spike. It might throw one out the other side. I'm not sure whether it actually does that or not. Certainly when I bought it, it only had one. Right, Psychopsis. I don't do so well with these. This was a rescue plant. As you can see, it's not a happy plant. It had next to no roots. It put out a new growth that promptly rotted, and I thought, yeah, you're going to go in the hedge. You're going under the hedge, and I threatened it. And blow me, the threat seemed to work, because it then pushed out another new growth with a not a bad leaf, but I don't think that leaf's actually going to get any better. So I think that's it, but the chances are that means down in amongst that moss somewhere are some new roots. It may pick up. You never know. But it wasn't a good plant when I got it. It's a trifle better now, but still not good. We live in hope, as they say. Right, another Psychopsis. This one's actually got a flower on the top, or about to have a flower on the top. I'll show the lens, silly boy. Okay, so that's coming on, but that flower doesn't look as big as it should be. And the last one actually failed, so I thought, oh, something or other, I've lost the flower spike. But they are perpetual flowering, and although it lost a bud, it didn't lose its flowering ability, and it promptly pushed out another one, as they do. But this is Papilio Alba, so there's no reds or mahoganies on that one, it's just yellows and creams, which might sound a little bit boring, but it's actually a very attractive flower. That's if it's going to make it, of course. I've got a feeling that's going to be a dwarfed flower, and I'll have to wait for the next one. I know what the problem is with my Psychopsis. The night temperatures are just too cold. But then I have a limited budget that doesn't go on forever, and it's not a bottomless pit, so we do what we can. This Psychopsis is a big one. It's got 2 flower spikes. Both are showing green, which means they have a swelling bud. And hopefully, as the day lengths are getting longer, these two might actually make it, and should be about a week apart, so they may both be out together. I'm a trifle worried about the spots on 2 of the leaves, but they appeared and they haven't got any worse. And you can't really take a leaf off on a Psychopsis. If you do, you've just taken that bulb out, basically, and stopped it photosynthesizing, which loses some strength to the plant. So I'm reluctant to take those leaves off, but we shall see. I'm hoping for another flower spike this year. That will be 3. That's good. This one is actually an awarded one. This is Hildos Mendenhall. Mendenhall to do with Carter and Holmes, I believe, in the States. Very famous sort of hybridizer people. Mendenhall, I think, was where their original glass houses were. Something like that, anyway. But there's a story there somewhere. Okay, so that's the 3 Psychopsis. Now, what have we got next? This is one of my favourites, even though it's a weak plant. It's not a strong plant, this one. It just isn't. It never has been. Latest growth coming on. It just seems to do one growth at a time. It's a very small Oncidium. The flowers are quite small, but they are unusual in that they open quite yellow with markings on them. And then within about 5 or 6 days, they fade to pure white. Not off-white or cream, pure white. So yellow fading to pure white. It's pretty good stuff. This is Oncidium White Cloud. A sort of quite small plant. But I'm hoping I'll get 2 leads out of it this time. As I say, the new growth's pushing on. It has got some roots pushing down. We'll see how he goes. Now this thing is destined for the bin. You are a sorry little plant. Flower spike's seen its day, so that's coming off. This is Bartley Swartz. And if you want to see what an Oncidium shouldn't look like, have a look at this one. This is what they're not supposed to look like. Large pseudobulbs getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's my latest one in the middle there, not so good. This is another new growth coming on. The pot is far too big. It was all I had at the time. It's also got that dratted coconut husk in it. And at the moment it's not doing very well. Now that spike's come off, I think I will probably hoik that out of the pot, possibly get rid of a few of the back bulbs and sort of try and start it again in a smaller pot and some decent medium and see if it will pick up. It's not my favourite flower, and I don't know whether you people are the same as me, but when you've got an orchid that's not your favourite, do you lose interest in it? Do you sort of put it at the back? Not bulk. Well, that's where that one is. I'm just not keen on that plant, and I'm not that keen on the flower. It's I don't know, it's just a bit dull for me. It looks like a watercolour painting without any gloss on. Anyway, that's that one. This one, however, I do like. When this one flowers, it is stunning. This is an Alicera, and it's Evening Colours The Gloaming. Nice big long elaborate name, that's what some people do. And this one has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 new growths on it. Now if they can all push on and get up to the size of the back bulbs, which are mainly in the centre, so that's working well. All the new growths are on the outside and not up the middle of the plant like they do sometimes. It's pushing out new roots to go with the new growths. Not doing bad. I am aware that that has got some of that coconut husk in the potting media, and it's on the list to be repotted. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to do that. It might be quite soon. Some of those new growths haven't really started pushing their roots out to any great extent, and those that have, I'll just have to be careful, won't I? But yeah, it's on the list to be repotted. Very pretty flower. While we're on the subject, I'll try plants that have flowered for me. In other words, the flower spike was mine, not bought in. I'll have a photo of, which I keep as part of my notes, which you've seen on the other video. So where I've got one that's not in flower now that I have a picture of that I took myself, I'll pop the picture up in the corner of the frame as we go past the flower. Okay. Ugh. Next, another Alicera. This is Sunday Best Pink Skirt, an awarded plant by American Orchid Society. It's got the normal one, the HCC AOS. But this plant wasn't doing very well in its pot, and when I took it out of the pot, it fell into 2 parts. I didn't divide it, it fell into 2 parts, because I know the rules on dividing. But nonetheless, I thought, well, I'll put them both in a single pot and get the new growths near the outside, and if they both do reasonably well, next time I repot it, which will be soon, because again it's got that dratted coconut husk in it, I'll actually have 2 separate plants that are coming on reasonably well. This is my latest growth here, next to the previous one, so, you know, reasonable size, not doing too bad. This one here is still pushing on this plant. Okay, so that is in fact 2 plants together. Again, a very pretty flower when it comes out. Or should I say if? When. Always say when. Okay, that's that one done. I'm running out of floor, help. I'm going to be tripping over stuff in a minute. Right, another twee little one. This is a Bialara hybrid, no specific name. No, you're not going to come off, are you? Not yet, next week. Again, I've been struggling with this plant for years. Why the hell I haven't thrown it away, I really don't know. But again, it's just got such a nice flower, and Well, like a lot of you, I'm sure, you don't like to quit. I hate giving in. So anyway, this one has pushed out a new growth at long last that's a reasonable size. It's also got an excuse for one round that side. And it is actually finally pushing out some roots down into the media. So that's on the path of recovery, I think we could say. Yeah. Get up there out of the way. Right, this is my other Nellie Isla. This is the reason why I bought the other one. You are a pathetic looking individual, aren't you? Yes, it has got new growths, but it's just no strength in it. It just won't go. And that has the telltale signs of me spoiling the plant for the sake of the flowers. It was a store-bought plant, therefore I couldn't see the roots. I didn't like the look of the media, but it had 3 flower spikes on it, and I thought, we'll repot that after it finishes flowering. And the flowers lasted really well. Unfortunately, that was its downfall, because the flowers lasted long enough that in the meantime the roots keeled over. And when I did get it out of the pot, it was in a sorry state. It's sort of recovering, but not doing very well. What have we got here then? This is an Oncidium that's also called a Miltonia, and it's one that started doing the rounds, a couple of years ago. It's called Sunset. Very pretty flower, which it hasn't done for me yet, but nonetheless it is pushing out some new growths that don't look too bad. It has got a reasonable root system on it. I think we're looking forward to a reasonable show off of that one. It's not doing badly at all. Okay, but the fact is, it's in with my Oncidiums, even though it's often sold as a Miltonia. Basically, that won't fit on the shelf with the Miltonias because they're small plants. So he's a half and half. I'm not quite sure what to call that one. And here we have, this is Oncidium Sweet Sugar. This does the rounds in our country quite frequently. It has a very, very large branch spike of typical Oncidium flowers, the yellow base with the red and whatnot markings. But it does seem to be the sort of Oncidium that you see quite a few of that only grow 1 lead at a time, and they're difficult to get to push out 2. And that's the goal, obviously, is to get them to push out 2. And let me just give that a wiggle so that we can have a look in there, because that, where are we? That down there wasn't there last week. Now, whether that's a spike, bearing in mind the spikes do come out from the base and it is possible to get 2, or whether that's a new growth, not quite sure. But in typical Oncidium fashion, the new growth is slightly higher than the old one, which means the roots are pushing out into air. This is not so good. We like them in the pot. So what a lot of people do is put a bit of sphagnum or something around there to build it up until they get their root tips down in there and get going. But if that's a new growth, that will be even higher. So they're a bit of a nuisance. They climb upwards and outwards. They just seem to try and get out of the pot, basically. But anyway, I shall update my notes. That's either a new growth or another spike. We shall see. But at the moment, it's a 1 lead plant. It pushes out 1 bulb. When it matures, it pushes out a beautiful flower spike. But one at a time. Right. Cherry babies. You have to have them, don't you? I don't get them to grow very good. I always have quite sad looking plants. And this one has been threatened with being sold at one point because he had a price on him. So I was borderline ditching that. My Cherry baby story is I got a scent in a supermarket that was stunning, and I tracked it down, and in those days the only orchids I had were Phalaenopsis, and I think I had 1 Nobile Dendrobium in those days, and I found this stranger looking orchid compared with what I was used to, with a couple of flower spikes on, with not brilliant flowers. They weren't stunning flowers, but the scent was gorgeous. So I bought the plant. and it sat on the dining room table for a long time. In those days I didn't even think about repotting things. So anyway, it sat there and it did its thing and it scented the whole dining room. People who came round were astonished at the scent. It was stunning. They thought it was false. They thought I had some sort of little aerosol spray that I went round before they'd come in, and I assured them it was real. Anyway, that plant eventually got to the point where it disintegrated. It actually started to rot from the base. The pseudobulbs were going. It had had it. I took off some pieces that didn't look too bad and tried to grow those on. One made it, the other two didn't. Out of the one that made it, that grew into a reasonable plant, but it had no strength in it. It just wouldn't go. The bulbs were never plump, the leaves were always crinkled, it just wouldn't get going. And eventually it put out some new growths, which I then took off again. This has a history, this plant. This is the bigger of the two growths, and yay! Is that a flower spike or another growth? Difficult to tell. Nope, from where that's coming out, it's a new growth. Oh, well, that's a shame. I could do with some flowers on you. But that's not a strong plant. It's not bad. I mean, Sherry babies are never the tidiest looking plants, but that's the larger of the two. And the previous one was the sort of smaller. But I've still got two, no flowers at the moment. Oh, we're nearly there now. This is a biggie. Now this was sold to me as Masai Red, and I looked it up in its history because it went in a show, and it actually won a first. But the cup is on my mantelpiece, which reminds me that needs cleaning because our show is on Saturday and I've got to give the cup back, so I've got to get all the tarnish off. It's a sturdy plant. I mean, that is one hell of a root system for an Oncidium type. Look at the size of these roots. They're great big fleshy roots heading up towards Cattleya sort of roots. It's a good strong plant, or strong version of this plant. Now, I've seen Masai Red in pictures, in Orchid Society displays, and it's difficult to find out what its true parentage is. Somebody's keeping it quiet apparently, but nonetheless, people who really know what they're doing with the hybridisation game, they can look at a plant and think, that's got that in it, and possibly some of that in it. I'll try it and see if I can get the same flowers. Hi, welcome back. Sorry about that rude interruption. I wondered what that red flashing light was, and it just cut me off. Still, I'm used to that sort of thing in life and stuff. Anyway, to just sum up with the Masai Red thing, there are quite a few versions of that on the market, and they all masquerade themselves as Masai Red. I've seen ones that are the deepest of reds with a very deep red lip and virtually no markings on them. Mine has actually got a slightly lighter coloured lip with markings, as you can see from the picture that I popped up. That was still masquerading as Masai Red. I think we're sort of getting to the stage, will the real Masai Red please stand up, and whoever actually produced it in the first place own up to what they did, so that we all know where we stand. And then perhaps some of the others that are equally as nice can be given different names. Maybe. Anyway, I'm coming towards the end now. So that was a nuisance being cut off just like that. This is a recent acquisition. It was on my sort of haul video that I did not so long ago. It's another Wildcat. It's not a bad plant, as I said before. This is Wildcat Rainbow. This one doesn't come up very often. This is a difficult to find one. I'm not going to water this because this is still quite weighty, and as I haven't repotted that yet, I don't know what's in there, and the fact that it feels quite heavy, I would suggest it's still wet. But what I have noticed, I'll see if I can get this to work, right down in there, there's something lurking. Now, whether that's a flower spike or another shoot, it's difficult to tell because of where it is. That's the bottom leaf, or bract, or whatever you want to call it. This is the second one up. And for something to be pushing out in there, has all the hallmarks of a flower spike to me, given where the last one was. Short leaf, long leaf, flower spike. Short leaf, long leaf, let's live in hope, shall we? Anyway, that's a new acquisition. If that flowers, I will be over the moon. It's not a bad plant. but it is a bit heavy. I'm a bit worried about what it's living in. I think we might have to get that out before that spike shoots off. We shall see. And last but not least, the beast. I know lots of you moan about eBay. This is an eBay plant. This came across the North Sea from my favourite seller. This cost me around 17 UK pounds, which in euros would probably be 22, 23 euros, something like that. This is a specimen plant. I defy anybody to find a better version of this, let alone on the internet. You can get good stuff on the internet. You've just got to be selective. Now this came with this flower spike. Picture showing now. The flowers were huge. And this goes back to the original Odontoglossum stuff. Sign of the cross. We must respect the Odontoglossums. We must say the word. We must leave it on our plant labels. That has a contribution to the whole of the orchid world, the hybridization programs. Odontoglossums were good stuff in their time. And to lump them in with Oncidiums, well, I'm not having it. Anyway, this one came with a flower spike on here, which flowered nicely. It also had 3 other new growths. One here, that's the new growth, and what looks like a dormant eye, which has just recently split and is showing green. That may move now, I don't know. And then coming around this side, that was the other new growth. There were 3. And again, that little eye there is showing a sign of a split. Now, given what that looks like, and its exact position on that pseudo bulb, that became a flower spike on that bulb. If those 2 become flower spikes as well, I'll do a little dance because I shall be over the moon. Anyway, this is the last one. This is Roseoglossum, Rawdon Jester. It actually has the original Odontoglossum. Oh, I've forgotten what it is now. I'll stick it up on a pop-up box. Memory's gone. Since we last met and we had a break, I've managed to have lunch, get a letter from a solicitor's, and a glass of wine, and edit most of the video that I started this morning, and come back in now. So although it might be a continuous sort of process for you guys, I've done an awful lot in that little gap there. But this is the last of the Oncidiums. I've also done some other watering because I haven't got time to wait and film while the battery's flat. So I'll catch up with the other sorts of things another time. But those are my Oncidiums. Some good, some bad, some ugly. Those are they. As I go round watering, you can see the sort of methodology that I use. I strip a shelf bare, water as I go, and then stack them all back up afterwards, sometimes in a slightly different order. So when I come back for another video, we'll work on another shelf, possibly the top shelf over there, which has got my brassica type things. It's got my Dendrobium phalaenopsis, and it's got some cattleyas, but it's quite a busy shelf. It's got quite an assortment on there, so perhaps we'll go over that. We shall see. Thanks for dropping by, thanks for your time, and sorry about the interruption. How embarrassing. See you again. Bye now.